Welcome to Synced on Air. I'm your host, Angelique Robb, and today I have a special guest, Paul Voresis from Delta Landscape Inc. out of California. Tell me if I said your last name right, and maybe you say it yourself.
Reese's, you nailed it.
Okay,
How you doing, Angelique?
Paul.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Really happy to be here.
Well, it's been great to talk to you previously. It's been a while, but been wanting to get you on the call and, just talk about the journey that you've had in the industry. So
Heck yeah.
thanks for joining us.
I'll tell you about my journey over the last 48 hours. I have a little cold I'm battling here, so I'm sorry if I come across a little raspy, everyone, but I'm trying my best.
I think you're a trooper. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks for, not having to reschedule and all that. But
I did
yeah,
not want to miss this.
maybe
Really excited.
rest after this.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on my voice with a little tea here, so.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, so Paul, you took over the company from your
Yes.
father, and can you kind of start from when he started the company and, and then you worked there as well while you were
Yeah.
while he was building the company. So give us a rundown of how he started it and what it was like growing up.
Yeah, so my father actually migrated to America from Greece, where he was born in 1976, and he started Delta Landscape Services in 1980. He through the Greek community in coming to America, he knew a Greek developer, and so in knowing the Greek developer, sorry, Angelique, are you still with me?
I'm still with you. Yes. Yeah. I
Okay,
think
sorry, there
maybe
was a
live
glitch on my
streaming.
end for a brief moment.
Yeah. No, it's
So
fine.
he got to know a Greek developer, and this Greek developer, for anyone who's listening who might be from Sacramento and was active in the 90s, Papadopoulos was his last name, Greek developer, and was notorious for needing trades and reaching out to the Greek community for fulfill these trade needs that he had. And I think construction's been around forever, but I think on this scale, it was relatively a newer endeavor, and he was building apartments. So he reached out to the Greek community. He needed a landscaper, and in the late 70s and approaching the 80s, I don't think landscape was quite that evolved. And so my dad heard that Papadopoulos was looking for a landscaper, and so he thought, hey, I had worked at olive vineyards in Greece growing up. I know a thing or two about plants. I helped my mom have gardens every summer. I'm going to give it a shot. And he came to America for opportunity. And this kind of felt like, hey, this is what I'm here for. This is the opportunity. I'm going to go for it. He started it with a
Love that.
partner at the time. And then it was like 6 months in, they got their first job. They were plugging away. His partner, unfortunately, went through a pretty abrupt divorce from what was explained to me, and then decided to move back to Greece. And so said, "Hey, Nick, you're on your own. You could take it from here." And that's where it all started. And I mean, fast forward over 45 years later, here we are.
Goodness, that is so nice that it was such a tight-knit community, and your dad took a chance on himself and his expertise in the vineyards, which, still tending vines and soil and all that, not quite landscaping, but yeah, he took a chance and went for it. Good on him.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway there is he came here for opportunity, and he was super ambitious, and he put his eyes on it, and he achieved it. So it's not rocket science. It just takes some perseverance.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you worked with your dad in the company growing up?
I swear I was like virtually born right onto a job site, kicking and screaming, swore up and down I would never do anything with landscape. I was very much forced to work all throughout my adolescence. I was raised very Greek in America, which was really challenging as a child. I mean,
Okay, so wait, what does that mean? Explain that a bit more.
sure. So in America, like there's this thing called spring break and summer break. And in American culture, when you have time off work, you go on vacation. And I would come back, elementary, junior high, high school from summer like, you know, I went to Hawaii with my family and I went and visited Mexico with my family. And for me, it was like, oh, Paul, what did you do? And it's like, I worked with my dad. And I was always kind of uncomfortable talking about it growing up. And so I would give as little as possible. Paul, what'd you do this summer? Oh, I worked at my dad's company. I felt like that sounded kind of cool, right? Really? What does your dad do? He runs a
Yeah.
landscape company. What did you do working for him? Were you in the office? No, I was out on the field. What did you do there? Were you digging dirt? And I'm like, pretty much, yeah. And then I would try to just kind of change the subject. So that was me growing up. Yeah,
Okay. Yes, but that teaches you life skills too, you know?
totally.
You still have to cooperate with people.
I'm so grateful for it now. And I think that what I'm most grateful for is like in those years, as embarrassing as it was to talk about with my peers, like I was learning how to manage team members. I was learning what it's like to achieve a goal around this job site and what needs to be done today and what we need to achieve in the next week and month. And so there was like really, really strong life lessons that I'm so grateful for today. But man, those were hard lessons to learn and definitely a clash of cultures there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, working hard is never a bad lesson, and working, younger than others, it's never a bad lesson. It might feel not great at the time, but you're probably, yeah, have done well because of that. So,
For
well,
sure.
and so, but you left your dad's company at some point, or tell me how that came about, because I saw that you worked at Lennar for a while.
Yeah, I did. So, I had such a miserable adolescence. I feel bad saying that, but it was so hard being raised Greek in America, and I just wanted to the best of my ability to get away. And so I looked at college as this opportunity like, "Oh, here it is. I'm gonna try to move away, and so I don't have to work every weekend, and I don't have to work when I'm not in school." So I tried to go to Long Beach for college and I'm the oldest. I'm the first in literally both sides of the family. I'm the first person to go to
Okay.
college. And so this is very
Mhm.
foreign and very new to my family. So I tried to go to Long Beach and my dad's like, nope, too far away. Not going to do it. So then I applied and was accepted to Chico State, which is about 100 miles north of where I live and where I grew up. And so my dad
Okay.
felt like, okay, I could still have control here. He was very much a control freak. I could still have control, but like, sure, Chico. So I went to Chico State just purely based on I want to go to college and I want to be as far away as I possibly can be from my
Away. Oh,
family for a little bit of time. I feel so bad saying that, but I'm just being honest. So I was able to pull off Chico State.
well, I was gonna
And
say, I'm sure everybody, if you think back to being 18, 19, we all felt a little bit like that. So don't feel too bad. I think it's normal.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It makes me feel a little better. It's like hard to like, yeah, I'm hearing myself talk right now. I'm like, man, you sound like such a jerk. But anyways, so Chico State had a really strong construction program. And so I was actually interested in 2 programs, construction because it was like I'd grown up around it. I also was really interested in interior design. I've always had this artistic side. And so I really enjoyed from interior design, like where design and construction kind of come together and live together, I feel like. So I took a few classes in interior design. They didn't offer a minor, but I took enough that would essentially be a minor. And then I ended up majoring in construction management. And so I received my degree in construction management and went into the construction industry for a short period of time.
And did it not fit well with what you wanted, or?
To be honest, I loved it. I absolutely loved construction. I loved building homes. I loved the process. I loved the culture at Lennar. I thought it was my first experience with a really large corporate culture. I had
Okay.
maybe some issues with some of the hierarchy and the ladder and some of the politics, but in general, by and large, I loved it. And so I was doing well. And to put a time frame on it, I graduated in 2005 and went right into it. So I worked there 2005
Okay.
through 2006, which was like such an amazing time to be in that world. And so I entered it at a time where we couldn't build the houses fast enough. And then towards the
Mhm.
tail end of my career in construction, the build teams would always have these sales meetings with sales every Monday. And I remember it so vividly. Couldn't sell them. We couldn't build them fast enough. And then there was one meeting in particular. I want to say it was around like June of 2006. Someone had walked away from a deposit, and we were just thinking, "This is crazy. We'll just sell it today. Who cares?" You know? And the sales team were kind of scratching their head. And then the next week, 2 people walked away from a deposit. And we're talking like 70, $80,000 deposit, and that kind of seemed crazy. And
Wow.
within 1 month's time, everything had collapsed, and it was so crazy to see how fast that happened.
Geez, and that was the start of the housing crisis. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And the housing crisis really, like, my father was in commercial landscaping, and it trailed the housing crisis by about a year and a half. And so things were starting to
Okay.
crumble in the housing market at the same time where my dad was like peaking in his career. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I know there's some interest maybe in the future of joining the company, taking over the company. If that's something that's
Yeah.
real, now would be a good time. I'm swamped and I'm having a hard time keeping up." And frankly, it was the first time my father had ever shown any sort of vulnerability to me. And that was kind of like
Mm.
the opportunities. I took it and I moved over from construction to working with my father alongside him as vice president.
And can you say, like, what up until that point, you said it was commercial maintenance only, or you had install as well? What was the range of services that you offered at that time?
Yeah, it was like a 70-30 split, and 70% construction, new installation, commercial, and then
Okay.
30% maintenance.
Maintenance. Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah, so you were still getting that construction element with the company, with your dad's company.
Yeah, it was more managing crews and not company though. It wasn't like I do feel
Okay.
like in that moment it was a step back, and I did have a little remorse after making that decision, but in the end it worked out really well for me.
And so you worked as vice president
Mhm.
and so that was 2006 that you stepped into
Yep.
that role.
Yes.
It can't be it can't be that easy coming into your dad's company. From what you describe, he didn't like to show vulnerability, maybe like to control things, and you were, being a VP, sharing in that. What was that like for you?
It was pretty tough, actually. It felt like, I'm in my mid-20s at this point. I'm like, I think I'm 23, and I'm just young and ambitious. And at that time, like, I wasn't, marriage was not on the horizon. Starting a family was not on the horizon. Like, working hard and having fun were like the two priorities in life at that point in time, right? So, like, I had all these ambitions and big ideas, and I wanted to become something. And so, like, I wanted to bring all of this to Delta, but my dad was really conservative and came from the old country and really believed in, small, continuous progress over an extended period of time. And, like, from a very, very young child, my father used to always tell me, "Slow down, not too fast." And it's just my nature, like, I move a little faster than my father did. So I felt like he really wanted to move slow, and I really wanted to move fast. And in that time in my life, and maybe I lacked the maturity to understand this fully, I think he was teaching me some really valuable lessons. I'll never move at the pace of my father. I'll always move faster. However, I think there was really valuable lessons to learn there. In that time in my life, it didn't feel like that. It felt like you have these expectations of me, and then you're putting me in a corner and not letting me achieve those, and you're setting me up for failure. So there was a little bit of animosity there. At an older age now and
Yeah.
with more maturity, I realized that that wasn't the case though.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
All
wasn't
right.
easy.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you're not the first to feel that, it just, I don't think we probably voice it enough, because you're never going to be, even if you're too similar, you'll probably have conflicts. If you're too different, you'll have conflicts, really
Totally.
growing up is really about learning to work with all types of people. And you need to have all types of people around you because you can't do everything yourself. And if you're moving fast, you'll need somebody moving slowly and maybe dissecting the problems a bit more where you're ready to move on and do it a different way. Like there's benefits to every type of thinking and working. So as hard as those lessons are, I think, you have to learn it at some point.
Mhm.
And it's probably, you know, a blessing that you had, that learning alongside your dad. Because he sounds like an amazing person.
He was strong-willed and very opinionated, which created its own challenges. But yes, I'm very, very appreciative for all of it. And I genuinely, truly in my heart believe I wouldn't be where I'm at and who I'm at today without those lessons. And I do appreciate who and where I'm at. And so yes, a lot of gratefulness.
Well, let's start moving through the years a bit. So we're at 2006, and you're working with your dad as VP. Um, how does the company evolve from there?
So it was really interesting to watch my father go through a historic recession so calmly and so calculated. And
Yeah.
this really showcased how he moved slow and methodical and how well that was. I mean, the world was crumbling around him, and he made very strategic and small moves, and he, kind of looking back at everything now, it was almost his early retirement. Like, he leaned on maintenance, installation had dried up. He was always very
Okay.
cautious of expenses, very, very cautious. I mean, he had a lot of struggle in his adolescence, so he really valued money, always had a reserve. This is how you want to enter recessions, and this is just how he walked through life. So I felt like
Wow.
he was able to ease into it, and he almost like got a lot of his time back and was able to rechannel that in other areas of his life that brought him joy. And he was not stressed out about the recession whatsoever. It was almost like he took a breath of fresh air and relaxed a little bit for the first time that I've ever seen. So it was really crazy to watch him go through that. And I think it almost deprived me of an experience of running a business through a recession because he seemed so calm and cool about it. And like, yeah, so it was that was that experience that took us through 2012. Things were starting to turn around beginning of or end of 2011. We just landed two install projects for the first time in about 2 years. So we were excited to get those started. Then, unfortunately, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he battled that for a year, and then he passed in August of 2012. And it was really quick. And so, um, at that time, that's when I took over 100%. So yeah, so that kind of carries us through 2012. And then post 2012 was life and business without my father, which had its own set of challenges and felt very different.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I think that must have been hard. And also having no full responsibility with not much notice. Were you
Mm.
ready for that? I mean, it sounds like in some ways you were, because you were wanting to do things differently than your father, but then sometimes it's easier to want the responsibility than to have it.
I was not at all ready for it.
Oh no.
So, my father unfortunately passed one day before his 62nd birthday. And so you don't plan your life around passing at that age. You just don't. And if you
That
do, that'd
age,
be a
yeah.
little strange,
Yeah.
frankly. So at this point, like I knew how to run a job site. I knew how to run the operations. I didn't know how to run the business. So I had to figure that out really, really fast. And that was a struggle. And, we came close to failing quite a few times, but we pulled through.
How do you think you did that, pulling through ultimately?
So my girlfriend at the time, who is now my beautiful wife, and we have a family together, she stayed by my side through the whole thing. And I really feel like we took this company on, and, like, it might sound like a little cliche, but we were very determined to succeed and
Mm.
agreed that failure is not an option here. And so when failure is not an option and you make that conscious choice, that's not always in the back of your mind as an option, like, "This is getting too hard, let's just wrap it up." That was not an option, and we established that from the get-go. So without failure being an option, we had to get through the
You
thick,
figure it out.
mucky,
Yeah.
hard stuff, and we had to. There was no other choice. We had to figure it out. When cash was tight, we would go to the PO box every day. We would look at all these like we just had to face everything head on, and we had to figure it out, and we knew that we just couldn't throw in the towel, and we just had to get through it. And it was sleepless nights and blood, sweat, and tears and all the crazy things, but we couldn't fail, so we had to. We had to do what we had to do.
Wow. Sounds like you've been through a lot. What tell us how the company has evolved, since, let's say, 2012 when you took over. Have you so it sounded like when your dad was still there, you were starting to do install projects again. Have you continued that throughout since since
So, yes and no. From the beginning, like, speaking 2012 forward without my father, I continued to do what I knew how to do, and that was predominantly installation. And I think our connections in the industry and our long-term relationships that my father had built over decades really served me really well. I mean, they really, like, all of the people who supported Delta Landscape and my father came together to support me. They knew that I
Hmm,
wanted to continue the company, and that my dad's gone, but Delta's
yeah.
still here and I'm in his place. They all knew me growing up alongside my father, not willingly, but alongside my father.
Yeah,
And so, um, we started getting a lot of jobs. The economy started turning around at a perfect time. We started landing a lot of
great.
jobs. I got some help. People really showed me support. And next thing you know, over 2012 through 2016, we were able to 3x the size of the company with installation.
Wow,
Yeah, and it was a wild, I mean,
that's
that was
amazing.
yeah, a wild ride. So that was happening, alongside something else that was happening, which was the construction industry that I grew up in was changing. So post-recession, there was kind of this introduction of bottom of 3 numbers. Everything goes out to bid. Doesn't matter if our relationship has been 30
Okay.
years and we've been the trusted partner. everything goes out to bid, and all of a sudden there's these price wars and Paul, I want you on the job, but here's where you got to be to get it. And so that was becoming a little difficult. That was a big change. It was hard to
Yeah.
not feel a little betrayed by that, but we kept going with it. And then we're on these jobs and
Well,
growing up,
and racing to the bottom, with,
racing to the bottom.
just yeah.
And then we're on these job sites, and growing up, like, I knew everyone on the job sites. I knew the plumbers, I knew the electricians, I knew the framers. We were kind
Hmm.
of this cohort that was moving through jobs together. And then post-recession, I don't know the electricians. I don't know the plumbers. I accidentally nick something in the electrical, and usually I would just fix it and we're good. Next thing you know, there's these back charges coming through, and it's like, I didn't even know I messed that up, and it cost $7,000 to fix. What are you talking about? And then there was this change order war,
Well,
and then there was a labor shortage. So there was like all these layers, and construction just didn't feel right anymore. It was like a war zone.
oh, that's
So,
terrible. So
yeah,
did you
so
move away from the construction?
yeah, so we made, we made some calculated efforts from 2016 through 2019. We were putting more emphasis on our maintenance division than our construction division. We kind of elected to hold construction where it's at while we put forth efforts to try and grow maintenance. And we did that successfully. So we were growing
Okay.
maintenance while holding on construction. And then in 2021, we made the election to move away from construction entirely and go full service.
Okay. Well, and that must have been hard because it sounds like, construction was, a love for you, even working for Lennar and your construction management and interior design, all of that seemed like, yeah, that's kind of where your heart was. But it sounds like your dad's methodical, decision making on what's best for the company maybe rubbed off on you.
Maybe a little bit, right, in ways that I didn't even realize at the time. It was, I will totally admit now that there's been some time and healing since we closed out installation, I was really bitter and really upset. I felt betrayed. I felt like the industry that I grew up in and the industry I was raised to believe in and support, and an industry that had supported me at the hardest time
Yeah.
in my life when I lost my father, I felt like it turned its back on me. Like, like, every time my phone rings, some person would be screaming
Jeez.
at me irate, like, "This was supposed to be done, and why didn't you do this?" And it just, like, it felt really it really brought down my life quality, and I was super bitter about that because I didn't want to move away from construction, but I couldn't live the life I wanted to live
Mm.
with construction, so I had to move on, and I was like, it probably took me a better part of 2 years to really be at peace with that, but it was really upsetting. It was very, very hard.
Well, on that vein, do you think that you would ever go back to doing design and build or build? Or is that something that, it took you 2 years to get over and you're just, yeah, that's the line drawn?
There's always gonna be this little piece of me that wants to go back, um, and although I would never say never, I'll also openly admit December of last year, we bid our first install project, in 4 years,
Oh,
and
of 2025.
yeah,
2025.
yeah, right. And and I was shocked to see where the market had gone, and I know there's a shortage of construction work out there right now, but I didn't realize how much it tanked the value in the market. I kind of, like, put a feeler in there, and what I got back was, wow, I that is this market is not something we wanna get into right now. In the near
Really?
foreseeable
Okay.
future, not gonna happen, but there'll always be this little bit of interest.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think it's doing it in a smart way and not compromising your cost, your quality, and can you do it and do it right? And it sounds like, yeah, you're always willing to look at that. But if it's not ready, if you can't keep your quality and your cost where they need to be, you're going to walk away. And I think that's smart.
Yeah, that really brings us to today, 2026. And, it's not just the construction market. I feel like the market in general, it's not, the market right now does not monetarily reward service and quality. And that has its set of challenges. Like, we've aligned ourselves to be that quality and service driven company in the service world. And I think there's more of a place for it in service than construction. But in both worlds, it's just not something you can leverage right now. And that's hard. I think it's a hard time for landscape right now. And it's cyclical, and I don't think it's going to be hard for much longer. But I will say, being driven by quality and service, not the right market to grow in right now. It's just the right market to really carve your reputation out for what's to come in the near future, I think, personally.
What do you think has changed? Why do you think that is? Because I'm a firm believer that good service and quality work should be the cornerstone of what we do, and you don't undermine your quality to race to the bottom and to, for a quick win that costs you in the long run. So what do you see in your market that you think has affected it?
So I have lots of thoughts there. Let's first start by identifying what my market is. So we're commercial landscape
Okay.
service. So
Hmm.
I'll speak to that. So I think in commercial landscape
Yeah.
service, I think the economy is soft right now. I think we are in a soft economy. No one wants to use the R word and say recession, but I do think we're in a market correction. And
Yeah.
honestly, I mean, I think it would be naive of us to get through a pandemic where the economy boomed and not have some sort of price to
Yeah.
pay. I mean, if you really think about it, with inflation rising and
Yeah.
stuff, like, no one should be alarmed by this. And so I think it's a market correction, which typically is called a recession, but for some reason right now it's not, and that's fine. So it's not a good economy right now.
Yeah.
And so with that said, cost is at the forefront of every conversation, and quality and service comes at a
Yeah.
cost. And so I think what has happened is, in the commercial service side, our customer, our client who we answer to, our decision maker is a property manager. A property manager serves for and represents an owner or an ownership group or a REIT. And so when cost is at the forefront of every conversation, and the
Yeah.
true decision maker is the owner, but our access to that is through the property manager. Property managers, they still want quality and they
Yeah.
still want service. But at the end of the day, if
But their
someone can
budget has been
offer,
cut.
right. And
Yeah.
so they can want quality and service all
They're
they
in the
want.
middle.
If the owner is like, hey, it doesn't pencil out, and if I have to have a little less quality and service,
Yeah.
I'm going to take this lower price. So I think there's some flaws in that model. And I think that
Yeah.
it puts added pressure on the property managers to be aggressive with their subcontractors and try to push for something they're not frankly paying for. And I think that puts pressure on property managers. And I've seen a lot of property managers leave the industry over the last few years.
Wow. Okay.
I've seen the caliber of property managers coming in. I feel uncomfortable saying this, but I don't think, I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't speak to that. I've just seen a lot of shifts and changes.
Yeah.
And so we're really
Well, and
having to figure this
it's the
out.
knock-on effect. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a
Go
challenging
ahead.
time right now. At some point, and I'm hopeful it's in the near future. I'm speculating in the next 2 years, if not sooner. the conversation will change. And as the economy turns around, people are going to want their buildings and their properties to look great. And they're going to have the resources to spend to achieve that, because the conversation's not going to be, I need to lower my costs. The conversation's going to shift to, I need to look better than that retail center across the street so I can get better tenants. I need to
Yeah.
increase my curb appeal, and I need to pay for that. And so where we're positioning ourselves now is, we're in a tough position where we have to say, hey, we can't give you the same quality and service at a lower price. And unfortunately, that's costed us some good business, and it's really unfortunate. But when we come out of this economic correction, we want to preserve our reputation as the go-to quality and service provider.
Mm.
And so when you're ready for your property to look great again, and we understand right now is not the time, but when you are ready for that, you're going to know where to go, and you're going to come to Delta Landscape. For right now, I see a lot of competitors that are meeting the market where it's at, and I think that comes at the expense of their reputation. And so it hurts. I don't like it. It's not comfortable, but we are not wanting to jeopardize our reputation. We're wanting to lean into it more now than ever
Yep.
before. So that way, when things turn around, people know where to find quality and service.
Yep. I think that's a great mission and a great stance to have. And it will pay dividends in the long run. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to weather some storms.
Right.
So back to family. So, your dad built this legacy and you have taken it on reluctantly at first, but then fully now. And
Mhm.
do you intend for this to be passed on to your kids? And what are your thoughts?
So, I would love to see Delta Landscape enter a third generation. I have a son who is named after my father, Nico. He's 9 years old. I'm 43, and I have two identical twin daughters, Devin and Drew, and they just turned 7. So when I really look at this, I would love to see a third generation. But I also, and I'm gonna give you some puzzle pieces that don't totally fit together here, and this is what I'm working with, and I don't
Okay.
have it all figured out. But so my wife Rusty and I, we had kids approaching our mid-30s. So, depending on who you ask, that could be a little late. And so I didn't know that this was for me fully until about the age of 30. And so I'll be
Okay.
65 when my kids are approaching their 30s. And so I would love to see that happen. My father passed a day before his 62nd birthday, and up until, I would say, a month before his passing, he was working diligently through cancer diagnosis, through chemotherapy, never slowed down. And so what I took from that is, I would love to start slowing down. And maybe that's just not being focused on growth. Maybe that's building a team around me who can run this with minimal input. Whatever that
Yeah.
means, I would love to start slowing down at about 55. And I would like to have some sort of exit strategy, whatever that looks like, by about the age of 60. I want to be able to experience some things in life, and I think 60 is a good time, seeing my father pass at 62 and working almost to the day he passed. So
Yeah.
so these two timelines don't really line up, right? I don't think my kids could really make that really firm decision until their 30s. That puts me at 65. Kind of got to play this one by ear a little bit.
Well, and you don't know that they're going to be so against it like you were until your 30s.
So it's funny you say that. It was about 3 weeks ago, my son, out of nowhere, and it, like, totally shook me, to be honest. You just kind of assume your kids are gonna feel the same way you did as a child, which is wrong. My son asked me
Is
kind of out of the
wrong.
blue,
Yeah.
we were driving together one day, and so, like, my son goes, "Hey, dad," and I was like, "Yeah, what's up, Nico?" And he goes, "We're learning about other countries in school, and is Delta landscape in other countries? And I said, no, we're not in other countries. In fact, we're not even really in other cities. We're just in Sacramento, and this is where we are. And he's like, why? And I said, when Papu is grandfather in Greek. So when Papu came to
Okay.
America, he wanted to build Delta Landscape to provide a good life for his family. And when I took the company over, my goal is to create this opportunity for other people to provide a good life for their family. And so my goal is not to be in other countries. But if you want to make that your goal, maybe you can do that one day. And he goes, I do. And I want it to be in like a lot of
What?
countries, Dad. And I was like, hey, if that's what you want to do and that's your goal, I will help you with that.
That is adorable. My goodness.
Yeah.
Now look, maybe
So
because you didn't force him to work for you every weekend. Well, I mean, he's 9, but sometimes,
I was
yeah,
working at
he
9 for the
wants to be a
record.
part
I
of
was
your
dropped
world.
off on
Yeah, were
job
you?
sites. But
Man, yeah, look, but that also, maybe your dad spent too much away from the family and in some way, you didn't like that it pulled them away from the family. And if you're able to spend more time with your family and still run the company, you're providing a much more positive view of a business owner. You're not having to give up as much as maybe your dad did. And so it's a more positive view of what you're doing, and you're setting a great example for your kids. So take the win.
yeah, I'll take it. And I love that perspective, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I have vivid memories of my father growing up just coming home, and he was working on the job sites with his team and just being exhausted and like nothing left in him, like could hardly even engage with his family. And he would eat dinner, drink one Budweiser on the couch, and go shower and go to bed and then wake up the next day and do it again. And so, yeah, it wasn't the best. Yeah, I think I never really put that together fully, but I love the perspective you shared on that. And I think you're absolutely right.
Well, I've had so much fun talking to you, Paul. I'm almost late for my next meeting, but I think this has been such a great chat, and I love learning about your journey, and I think it'll be very educational and inspiring for many people. So I'd like for you to tell people how they can get in touch with you if they want to reach
Sure.
out, or
Yeah,
your
you can
company.
find me on LinkedIn, either at Delta Landscape Services Inc. or Paul Voresis. That's V as in Victor, Oresis. I'm really active on LinkedIn, and I love to connect. As you could tell, I'm open book, and anything I can share with anyone if there's any takeaways, and I love learning too. So if there's something that others want to share too, I'm all in and all open, and I love and support this industry, and so wherever I can fit into that for people, I'm here.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. And I'll say my one Greek word that I know,
No,
kalispera.
let's hear it.
No, did you hear?
Kalispera,
Kalispera.
Kalispera. Oh, I love it.
Oh, I can't say it with the Greek
Kalispera.
accent, but kalispera.
It's very
So
good.
thank you so much,
Yeah.
Paul. And look
Yep.
forward to meeting you
Thank
in
you.
person one day too. Thanks, Paul.
Absolutely. We'll have to do that very soon. All right. Take care.